Hello everyone, I'm Miles. Today we're going to tackle one of the most practical questions in investment banking M and AMP, deals. When one company acquires another, how do you determine whether the deal is EPS accretive or EPS dilutive? In other words, after the merger, will the acquirer's earnings per share go up or down? This metric often determines whether a merger is praised or criticized. Step 1. Define the merger. M and AMP, A, or merger and acquisition, refers to when a company acquires or merges with another company to achieve higher profits, a larger market share, or stronger strategic power. But no matter how grand the strategy, real bankers and entrepreneurs always come back to the simplest test. Will this deal increase or decrease the acquirer's earnings per share? Step 2. Why is the impact on EPS so important? EPS is the scoreboard for investors. A deal that increases EPS means shareholders profit. The buyer has acquired earnings at a price lower than their own cost of capital. A deal that dilutes EPS means shareholders lose out. Too much money was spent for too little return. Step 3. Practical problem. Let's work through a problem together. Assume the transaction is paid 100% in stock, meaning the buyer acquires the seller entirely by issuing new shares. The buyer's PE ratio is 12, and the seller's PE ratio is 8. The question, is this deal accretive or dilutive? The trick is simple. In an all-stock transaction, compare the buyer's cost of equity, that is, the earnings yield, which is the inverse of the PE ratio, E over P, with the seller's earnings yield. The buyer's earnings yield is 1/12, which equals 8.3%, while the seller's earnings yield is 1/8, which equals 12.5%. To put it simply, in an all-stock transaction, the earnings yield is the cost of equity. In this case, E over P equals the cost of equity, because the price you pay for the equity determines your return, which is its annual earnings. It's clear that the buyer's cost of issuing stock is 8.3%, but the seller is offering an earnings yield of 12.5%, which is higher. As a result, the buyer's EPS is accretive, meaning that earnings will increase after the merger. This deal benefits the buyer because the buyer is exchanging low-yield equity for higher-yield earnings, so earnings per share go up. The key point here is that the numbers in M and AMP, A, are never just cold arithmetic. They tell a story about value. If the yield you acquire is higher than your cost of capital, you create value. Otherwise, you destroy value. That's why the success or failure of an acquisition often hinges on the test of EPS before and after the deal. It turns grand strategy into cold, hard financial truth. After all, doing M and AMP, A isn't just about buying a company. It's about buying time, buying yield, and more importantly, buying the trust of shareholders.